I will try to read selections from the Wikipedia article for Parsifal. Introduction. Parsifal is an opera in 3 acts by German composer Richard Wagner. It is loosely based on Parsifal by Wolfram von Eschenbach, a 13th century epic poem of the Arthurian knight Parsifal, and his quest for the Holy Grail, 12th century. Wagner conceived the work in April 1857, but did not finish it until 25 years later. It was his last completed opera, and in composing it he took advantage of the particular acoustics of his Bayreuth Festspielhaus. Parsifal was first produced at the Second Bayreuth Festival in 1882. The Bayreuth Festival maintained a monopoly on Parsifal productions until 1903, when the opera was performed at the Metropolitan Opera in New York. Wagner described Parsifal not as an opera, but as ein Bühnenweisfestspiel, a festival play for the consecration of the stage. At Bayreuth, a tradition has arisen that audiences do not applaud at the end of the first act. Wagner's spelling of Parsifal instead of the Parzival that he had used up to 1877 is informed by one of the theories about the name Parsifal, according to which it is of Arabic origin. Parsi or parse, fal, meaning pure or poor fool. Now for the synopsis. Place, near the seat of the Grail. Act 1. In a forest near the home of the Grail and its knights, Gurnemanz, eldest knight of the Grail, wakes his young squires and leads them in prayer. He sees Amfortas, king of the Grail knights, and his entourage approaching. Amfortas has been injured by his own holy spear, and the wound will not heal. Vorspiel. Musical introduction to the work with a duration of 9 to 13 minutes. Scene 1. Gurnemanz asks the lead knight for the news of the king's health. The king says the king has suffered during the night and is going early to bathe in the holy lake. The squires ask Gurnemanz to explain how the king's injury can be healed. But he evades their question, and a wild woman, Kundry, bursts in. She gives Gurnemanz a vial of balsam brought from Arabia to ease the king's pain, and then collapses, exhausted. Amfortas arrives, borne on a stretcher by knights of the Grail. He calls out for Gawain, whose attempt at relieving the king's pain had failed. He is told that Gawain has left again, seeking a better remedy. Raising himself somewhat, the king says, going off without leave, Honorlob, is the sort of impulsiveness which led himself into Klingsor's realm and to his downfall. He accepts the potion from Gurnemanz and tries to thank Kundry, but she answers abruptly that thanks will not help and urges him onward to his bath. The procession leaves. The squires eye Kundry with mistrust and question her. After a brief retort, she falls silent. Gurnemanz tells them Kundry has often helped the Grail Knights, but that she comes and goes unpredictably. When he asks directly why she does not stay to help, she answers, I never help. Ich help nie. The squires think she is a witch and sneer that if she does so much, why will she not find the holy spear for them? Gurnemanz reveals that this deed is destined for someone else. He says Amfortas was given guardianship of the spear, but lost it as he was seduced by an irresistibly attractive woman in Klingsor's domain. Klingsor grabbed the spear and stabbed Amfortas. The wound causes Amfortas both suffering and shame, and will never heal on its own. Squires returning from the king's bath tell Gurnemanz that the balsam has eased the king's suffering. Gurnemanz's own squires ask how it is that he knew Klingzor. He solemnly tells them how both the holy spear which pierced the side of the Redeemer on the cross and the Holy Grail which caught the flowing blood had come to Montsalvat to be guarded by the Knights of the Grail under the rule of Titurel, father of Amfortas. Klingzor had yearned to join the knights, but, unable to keep impure thoughts from his mind, resorted to self-castration, causing him to be expelled from the order. Klingzor then set himself up in opposition to the realm of the Grail, learning dark arts, claiming the valley domain below and filling it with beautiful flower maidens to seduce and enthrall wayward Grail knights. It was here that Amfortas lost the holy spear, kept by Klingzor as he schemes to get hold of the Grail. Gurnemanz tells how Amfortas later had a holy vision which told him to wait for a pure fool enlightened by compassion, durch Mitleid wissend der rein Tor, who will finally heal the wound. At this moment, cries are heard from the knights, "Vey, vey!" A flying swan has been shot, and a young man is brought forth, a bow in his hand and a quiver of matching arrows. Gurnemanz speaks sternly to the lad, saying this is a holy place. He asks him outright if he shot the swan, and the lad boasts that if it flies, he can hit it. Im Flug treff, ich was fliegt. Gurnemanz tells him that the swan is a holy animal and asks what harm the swan has done him, and shows the youth its lifeless body. Now remorseful, the young man breaks his bow and casts it aside. Gurnemanz asks him why he is here, who his father is, how he found this place, and lastly his name. To each question the lad replies, "I don't know." The elder knight sends his squires away to help the king and now asks the boy to tell what he does know. The young man says he has a mother, Herzeleid, heart's sorrow, and that he made the bow himself. Kundry has been listening and now tells them that this boy's father was Gameret, a knight killed in battle, and also how the lad's mother had forbidden her son to use a sword, fearing that he would meet the same fate as his father. The youth now recalls that upon seeing knights pass through his forest, he had left his home and mother to follow them. Kundry laughs and tells the young man that, as she rode by, she saw Herzeleid die of grief. Hearing this, the lad first lunges at Kundry, but then collapses in grief. Kundry herself is now weary for sleep, but cries out that she must not sleep and wishes that she might never wake again. She disappears into the undergrowth. Gurnemanz knows that the Grail draws only the pious to Montsalvat, and invites the boy to observe the Grail rite. The youth does not know what the Grail is, but remarks that as they walk, he seems to scarcely move, yet he feels as if he is traveling far. Gurnemanz says that in this realm time becomes space. Zum Rom wird die Zeit. Verwandlungsmusik, transformation. An orchestral interlude of about 4 minutes. Scene 2. They arrive at the hall of the Grail, where the knights are assembling to receive Holy Communion, zum letzten Liebesmahl. The voice of Titurel is heard, telling his son Amfortas to uncover the Grail. Amfortas is racked with shame and suffering. Weh wohl Serb, dem ich verfallen. He is the guardian of these holy relics, yet has succumbed to temptation and lost the spear. He declares himself unworthy of his office. He cries out for forgiveness, Erbarmen, but hears only the promise that he will one day be redeemed by the pure fool. On hearing Amfortas's cry, the youth appears to suffer with him. Clutching at his heart, the knights in Titurel urge Amfortas to reveal the Grail and hewlet den Grail. And he finally does. The dark hall is now bathed in the light of the Grail as the knights eat. Gurnemanz motions to the youth to participate, but he seems entranced and does not. Amfortas does not share in taking communion, and as the ceremony ends, collapses in pain and is carried away. Slowly the hall empties, leaving only the young man and Gurnemanz, who asks him if he has understood what he has seen. When the lad cannot answer, Gurnemanz dismisses him as just a fool and sends him out with a warning to hunt geese if he must, but leave the swans alone. A voice from high above repeats the promise. The pure fool enlightened by compassion. Act 2, Vorspiel. Musical introduction, 2 to 3 minutes. Scene 1. Klingsor's magic castle. Klingsor conjures up Kundry, waking her from her sleep. He calls her by many names. First sorceress, Utterfelin. Hell's Rose, Helen Rose. Herodias, Gundrigia, and lastly Kundry. She is now transformed into an incredibly alluring woman, as when she once seduced Amfortas. She mocks Klingsor's mutilated condition by sarcastically inquiring if he is chaste. Ha ha, bist du küsch? But she cannot resist his power. Klingsor observes that Parsifal is approaching and summons his enchanted knights to fight the boy. Klingsor watches as Parsifal overcomes his knights and they flee. Klingsor wishes destruction on their whole race. Klingsor sees this young man stray into his flower maiden garden and calls to Kundry to seek the boy out and seduce him. But when he turns, he sees that Kundry has already left on her mission. Scene 2. The triumphant youth finds himself in a wondrous garden surrounded by beautiful and seductive flower maidens. They call to him and entwine themselves about him while chiding him for wounding their lovers. Come, come, holder nabe. They soon fight and bicker among themselves to win his devotion, to the point that he is about to flee. But then a voice calls out, Parsifal. He now recalls this name is what his mother called him when she appeared in his dreams. The flower maidens back away from him and call him a fool as they leave him and Kundry alone. Parsifal wonders if the garden is a dream and asks how it is that Kundry knows his name. Kundry tells him she learned it from his mother, Ik zal das Kind en seine Mutter Brust, who had loved him and tried to shield him from his father's fate, the mother he had abandoned and who had finally died of grief. She reveals many parts of Parsifal's history to him, and he is stricken with remorse, blaming himself for his mother's death. He thinks himself very stupid to have forgotten her. Kundry says this realization is a first sign of understanding, and that with a kiss she can help him understand his mother's love. As they kiss, Parsifal suddenly recoils in pain and cries out Amfortas's name. He feels the wounded king's pain burning in his own side and now understands Amfortas's passion during the Grail ceremony. Amfortas, die Wunde, die Wunde. Filled with compassion, Parsifal rejects Kundry's advances. Furious that her ploy has failed, Kundry tells Parsifal that if he can feel compassion for Amfortas, then he should also be able to feel it for her. She has been cursed for centuries, unable to rest because she saw Christ on the cross and laughed at his pains. Now she can never weep, only jeer, and she is enslaved to Klingsor. Parsifal rejects her again, but then asks her to lead him to Amfortas. She begs him to stay with her for just 1 hour, and then she will take him to Amfortas. When he still refuses, she curses him to wander without her finding the kingdom of the Grail, and finally calls on her master Klingzor to help her. Klingzor appears and throws the spear at Parsifal, but it stops in midair above his head. Parsifal takes it and makes the sign of the cross with it. The castle crumbles and the enchanted garden withers. As Parsifal leaves, he tells Kundry that she knows where she can find him. Act 3, Vorspiel. Musical introduction, 4 to 6 minutes. Scene 1. The scene is the same as that of the opening of the opera, in the domain of the Grail, but many years later. Gurnemanz is now aged and bent. It is Good Friday. He hears moaning near his hermit's hut and discovers Kundry unconscious in the brush, as he had many years before. Sie, wieder da! He revives her using water from the holy spring, but she will only speak the word serve, dienen. Gurnemanz wonders if there is any significance to her reappearance on this special day. Looking into the forest, he sees a figure approaching, armed and in full armor. The stranger wears a helmet, and the hermit cannot see who it is. Gurnemanz queries him and chides him for being armed on sanctified ground and on a holy day, but gets no response. Finally, the apparition removes the helmet, and Gurnemanz recognizes the lad who had shot the swan, and joyfully sees that he bears the holy spear. Parsifal tells of his desire to return to Amfortas. Zu ihm des tiefe Klagen. He relates his long journey, how he wandered for years, unable to find a path back to the Grail. He had often been forced to fight, but never wielded the spear in battle. Gurnemanz tells him that the curse preventing Parsifal from finding his right path has now been lifted, but that in his absence Amfortas has never unveiled the Grail, and a lack of its sustaining properties has caused the death of Titurel. Parsifal is overcome with remorse, blaming himself for this state of affairs. Gurnemanz tells him that today is the day of Titurel's funeral, and that Parsifal has a great duty to perform. Kundry washes Parsifal's feet, and Gurnemanz anoints him with water from the holy spring, recognizing him as the pure fool, now enlightened by compassion, and as the new king of the Knights of the Grail. Parsifal looks about and comments on the beauty of the meadow. Gurnemanz explains that today is Good Friday, when all the world is renewed. Parsifal baptizes the weeping Kundry. Tolling bells are heard in the distance. Gurnemanz says, "Midday, the hour has come. My lord, permit your servant to guide you. Mittag, die Stund ist da. Gestatte dass dich dein Knecht geleit." And all three set off for the castle of the Grail. A dark orchestral interlude, Mittag, leads into the solemn gathering of the knights. Scene 2. Within the castle of the Grail, Amfortas is brought before the Grail shrine in Titurel's coffin. He cries out, asking his dead father to grant him rest from his sufferings, and expresses the desire to join him in death. Mein Vater, hoch gesegneter der Helden. The Knights of the Grail passionately urge Amfortas to uncover the Grail again, but Amfortas, in a frenzy, says he will never again show the Grail. He commands the knights instead to kill him and end his suffering and the shame he has brought on the knighthood. At this moment, Parsifal steps forth and says that Parsifal steps forth and says that only one weapon can heal the wound. Nur eine Waffe taugt. He touches Amfortas' side with the spear, and both heals and absolves him. Parsifal commands the unveiling of the Grail. As all present kneel, Kundry, released from her curse, sinks lifeless to the ground as a white dove descends and hovers above Parsifal. And that is the end of the synopsis. And this was August 24th, 2020. Praise God. Jah Rastafari.